All right, I'll go ahead and get started then. Let me go ahead. Today's presentation, we're going to have 3 parts. And go ahead and share my screen. Everybody see my screen? Okay. So today's going to have 3 parts. We're going to continue to work on building our student success. We're going to look a little bit at time management. And Christopher's going to speak to us about group tutoring approach. And then finally, Matt is going to help us a little bit, remind us about study strategy that we can share with students. Now, you guys have already been doing this for a while, so some are new and some are been doing this a while. So we're trying to implement some continual improvement approaches so that we can always move towards making a better customer service experience for our students who come to visit us. So the objectives today would be to create a welcoming environment, using your time effectively. The second one would be to implement and explore just options for group tutoring strategies. And the third one was expanding your toolbox with group study strategies. And I want to thank Christopher and Matt for helping with this presentation today. So my first image there is just to give you an idea. When a person signs in to the LSS, or Learning System Support, what do they see? And what goes in their mind? They sign into this website. They don't know, did anybody see me? Did I sign in okay? When will somebody see me? How will I know they're going to help me, and how can they help me? So they're entering into this environment, and it's really what it is we are adding them into a virtual waiting room. And so what I would like to happen, as time goes on and we all learn to work together better, is to create the most welcoming environment, even though they're online, that they feel very at home in this space, that they know what to expect, how they're going to be helped, when they're going to be seen, and just improving the communication so that whoever is assisting the person, sometimes we wait for another, like if there's some math tutor on duty, we wait for the math tutor to do the first outreach. We do have 2 front desk staff, and we have Sabrina that's continuing on. So I guess Veronica didn't make it today, so we have Veronica and Danielle, who are our 2 front desk staff, and they're here in the morning, but they're here only towards noon. And in the evening, we have Sabrina, and we also have Jaleesa, and she likes to be called Lola. So we're all learning how to work together collaboratively to make a good environment so the students they want to come back, and they feel like that they spent their time wisely. So we don't want them to wander around in the canyon, or we don't want them to see blackness or darkness. We want to help them. So our Learning Resource Center mission statement is to the SMC Learning Center's mission is to enhance academic success of our students, reinforce and supplement classroom instruction, create a learning environment that's student-centered. So let's take a moment and think about that. How can we enhance as we're talking today, think about ways that we can enhance their success. What could we do as an individual to enhance them, to elaborate on what they learned in the classroom? And how can we make it student-centered? So when they sign into the LSS, how can we help them in this virtual waiting room? How can we one of the things we want to do is we want to acknowledge their presence. We want to give them an idea of what to expect in terms of time, and let them know who's going to be helping them, and then how they can be helped. They don't know what to expect. They just throw it out there and then they wait. And I think some of them are just signing in, and then they're going off and doing other things, and maybe coming back 2 hours later and hoping that somebody's there to help them. And maybe they're saving their spot in line. But so the goal is to create a welcoming environment. So setting the expectation, we would like it as a group is if as soon as a person gets into the learning center, as soon as possible, within 15 minutes if possible, acknowledge that you see them in the queue so that they know that they are signed in. The second thing you want to do is be able to communicate with the other tutors, the front desk, because it's going to be all of us, whoever's on the team with you at that time, on duty with you, communicate with them as a team. Say, hey, there's a math student needing help, or I'm helping this student. Can you please reach out to that student? So communicate to the other tutors, communicate to the front desk staff, and if you're the one making the initial contact, let the others know that you've done that. The most important thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to acknowledge their presence. We want to let them know what to expect because they don't know what to expect. Am I going to wait for an hour? Am I going to wait 15 minutes? Let them know who's going to be helping them. If you have a schedule, when you're sending them your outreach, send them that schedule. If you know that there's not going to be a math tutor on duty until like 1 hour from now, or there's 3 people in the line, just acknowledge that, let them know that that this is happening, and that so that they can expect, they'll have a good expectation about when they can be helped. Now, I asked Dan about the time limit. He says try to keep it at 30 minutes maximum, but if you can end it earlier. You can set up a Google Meet invite in your student email. Oh, let them know let them know what to expect, and let them know that they're going to get an invite from the tutor in their student email, and make sure that they're ready to respond. And also ask them, don't sign in if you're in class or if you're coming back an hour later. They seem silly, but these are things that I observed in the last 4 or 5 weeks when I'm observing different sessions. Any questions on that? That was a lot of information, but 2 things I want to leave you at is it's all of we will work together to make a welcoming environment. Try to greet them as soon as possible. Communicate with whoever's on duty with you. Like if it's Monday chat, you're communicating with whoever's on duty at that moment. Think of it as a baseball game or something where you're going to be handing it off. When you get ready to go off shift, let that next person know, hey, there's 2 people in line that have not been helped. They're waiting for help and such. What it would be good is if you can do a quick assessment on who's in the queue, and watch, if you're the front desk staff, keep a note about I'm writing down their MEIDs now and their time and their class, because just in case someone disappears, I can still reach out to them later. And I got an idea from Tina. She'll copy paste who's in the queue and put them right in the chat, so that way you don't have to write it down. You have it there ready for the next person.
So Deborah, I don't know if it was Christopher and I talking yesterday or if I was talking with someone else, but we come back to the students, and I try to tell this to students when they come in actually into the computer commons, that because the students are hesitant about using the online learning, just because of what you brought up, the online tutoring application. So I try to go over that with them, no matter what class that they're asking for tutoring in. And I always kind of tell them, okay, there could be some delay. And I say, you're looking at the schedule now, don't try to sign in ahead of time, but try to when the tutor is coming onto their schedule. But I still think we get back to, and we've talked about this before, is we may need to create, if we're going to continue this system, we may need to create a video that we can share with the students on this experience.
Yes, I think that would be a great idea. Do I have any? I'm going to ask for some volunteers on that and getting some help on that, because I feel like a quick video would be a good thing, because then you know what to expect and how, like when you're signing in, this is what's going to happen next. So I may reach out to marketing and see if they could help us create one, but just a way to communicate. And then something we can attach to the email along with the schedule.
I actually believe I just remembered this. I don't know why I think about this earlier, Tina. But I remember I think it was like the pandemic initially started. Roberto and I made a video, and I don't know where that went. I don't know if it was sent to Dan or what, but I would check with Dan. I don't know. You may even have it, Debbie.
Oh,
But
I've never seen it.
okay, yeah, we made a video like with, like I was pretending to be a student, logging in to LSS, and then him sending me the email and pulling it up on my own Maricopa email and clicking it and then joining. We like had a fake little session in the beginning too and everything, like him introducing himself and all that. So
I like that. I'll research that and find that. I remember you talking to me briefly about that when we first started, but I don't know if I ever saw it. And so I'll see if I can find that. I'll bring that up. And if not, we can still see, what we can create because we're a very creative group. I think we can come up with some good ideas. We talked about marketing over the summertime, so I think that we have some great beginnings. All right, thanks for that idea. So, is there any, so the main thing is greet the person when they come in, acknowledge the presence, let them know what to expect. Because, and I'm going to add to that, like what you mentioned, Tina, is not only tell them what to expect, but how, like, like the sign-in system. If you're seeing them first, because they don't know who's on duty and what time. And I don't know about you, but I've seen people in the Learning Resource Center at 9:30 in the morning and nobody's really watching the Learning Resource Center. So when you're watching the queue, watch both the LRC, which Dan says is only for after 3 o'clock for the online, but students are in there waiting for some help in math and communication and English. So when you're on duty, check it often, and we'll work on this together because I know I'm forgetting because that's not a habit of mine, but I will. I will work together with the group so that with the front desk checking it because they're only on duty till 12 o'clock, and then when the evening shift comes on, that we're all working together and communicating. Oh, Ishlan, are you raising your hand? I see a little hand by your name there.
Yes. When I always check that in the tutoring signing, and when I find them online waiting for them, I email them. I email them, tell them that there's no tutoring during that time for that class, or if there's any tutoring for it, I send them or tell them to come upstairs or go if they need it for writing. I tell them to go to the writing center.
All right, that's really great. I appreciate you doing that, and because that way they're not just waiting for 4 or 5 hours until the 3 o'clock person comes on. And I'm guilty of that, so I'll have to say that I'll be watching for it because I didn't realize that they can sign in there anytime. And so it's our job to try to communicate that to the student. And I'm not on duty all the time, so I may have morning off or maybe an afternoon or an evening. So so we're going to work together. We have the shift that goes. We have people from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. You know what the hours are, so we'll work together to make it better. Let's see, I can't think of anything else on this, just we'll work together on the communication. Now, customer service. Now, I like this image. So this is the environment I would like it, so the students sign in. And the scenario that I was thinking about that created this whole session that we're doing today is that on Wednesdays and Tuesdays, I've been seeing at least 3 to 5 people online, and it's taken a long time for the first person to get the help. So it created a little problem scenario. So I want to make sure that first of all they feel welcome, that they can relax, that they know that they have confidence in us. If I had my way right now, we'd be having some snacks. We would give them snacks when they're in the waiting room, but we can give them the ambiance of being calm, that we will take care of them, and just acknowledging them. But as you are working with the students, if you see 4 or 5 people on there, try to um, um, just excuse yourself for a minute and try to acknowledge the other person in line. I've noticed now Chloe, she started a couple weeks ago. I noticed a couple times you've been doing, you're like helping 2, 3 people at the same time. So what I was going to say is I like how you were doing it. I don't know how you were able to reach out to the students so quickly. And so do you have any strategies that you could recommend there that, because you were helping one student, but you were contacting 2 or 3 at the same time. You have any strategies you were using there?
Oh, I just like told the person I was working with, I was like, hey, I'm gonna take a minute to like email some other students real quick, and then just copy and pasted like a email, and then swapped out for what courses they were looking for help in.
Oh, so you use a template. Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed that when I'm working on my template, I'm still in the like, dear so and so, and you already sent out 2 or 3 of them. So we all have to work on working together and communicating. We all have our gifts and skills. So it's good that we're reaching out. And now, Islan, you're doing in person. So have you had more than one person come to you so far? Or?
Oh no, I only have like when they come, I don't know how, but they like when one is done. I don't know if they test someone else like the friend, and they don't come together.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. Well, that's good. So, um, oh,
Deborah, Deborah, this is Tina.
yes.
One thing that I put in the chat is I think what Islande is doing is great, but possibly if she has that happen, could she copy the tutor or tutors that might help the student later on in the online environment?
Oh, that's a great strategy there. Thank you for bringing that up. So,
Just so like what
yeah.
I've been doing sometimes is actually just chatting with that other tutor. If I think a student may sign in later, like if I have students come into the computer commons, and like yesterday we had someone come in and was looking for, it was actually Adobe Photoshop, but I just chatted with Albert because I knew he was coming on at 3 and just said, heads up, this student may be signing in later, just so you know to watch for this student. So either of those ways.
hmm And one of the things that I try to do is if I see that the tutors, thank you for saying that, because just chatting, you're just you're putting in the chat who you're working with in case that person might need more help later. You're kind of passing the wand on to the next person, and also in communicating with them in the chat. Um, One of the areas that I try to do when I'm working with, when I send them the email, is if I see who's coming on next, I'll include them in the email so they know when that person was looking for help, what kind of help they were looking for. But I think I'd like to see more of a, like, when I get more comfortable. Oh, bye, Tina. When I get more comfortable, I'm going to assess what the actual need is, and then do a better assessment to pull people together in groups. So, well, that leads us to our next part. Um, our our next part of the discussion is going to be working in groups. Now that we talked about strategies, I really briefly touched on it, and using good time management and helping people. Now Christopher is gonna talk to us a little bit about working in groups.
All right, everyone. So, Debbie, if you go to the next slide. Awesome. So I want to start off honestly just by asking you all, due to the last 2 years, how do you feel things are different? Period. When in regards to tutoring, especially with in person and online, what do you think the differences are? What are some things that you have experienced? So you can put some things in the chat. Let's give you like 30 seconds for that, and then after that, we'll ask those that feel comfortable speaking out loud, speak out loud. So let's go like 30 seconds here, okay?
Oh, Christopher, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah,
The box is real tiny, so I can't see the chat when you only see like 4 little.
I can see it.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks.
25 seconds. $20 more to go.
I don't see it.
15 more.
And Eastline can't see the chat.
Should be a button at the bottom that says chat, or if your screen is really small, if you go all the way over to the right, you should see something that looks like a what they call those, like speech box, you know, when you're looking at comics or manga.
Okay.
See, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So, Eastland, though, you seem pretty comfortable speaking. If you would like, what are some things, if you feel comfortable speaking out loud now, what are some things that you see are different between online and in person?
Actually, I don't do online. I do in person, but online it's kind of difficult. Sometimes the student don't know how to pronounce some type of thing, and sometimes we have trouble hearing what they are saying. So we have to be patient, but at the same time, sometimes the student have to be somewhere else. But when it's in person, you get to talk with the student. Online, they go straight to do the homework, but in person, you get to talk to them. You don't they because you're not going to give them the answer. You explain it to him like, oh, I do it that way. That's the easy way. I thought it would be easy for you. I don't know. You show him different method.
Okay. And then let's see. I think a lot of you all feel that way. Anyone else feel comfortable speaking out loud?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can. You know what? Do you have your camera on too, Felix? I think you had enough time to pretty stuff up, right?
Oh, can you guys see me?
Yeah.
Okay,
Perfect.
for the new people who don't know me, I'm Felix, just let you know. I just wanted to say what I said in chat and say like I'm a big like example guy and I like to write down a lot of things with people. I just find that it's a lot harder to do that online versus in person. And to like I'm a big visual aid guy, so like it's just much harder to do that online. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think a lot of people feel similar in many ways. So, anyone else that wanted to speak up? All right, I'll read a couple of things I see in the chat in here. So, from Antonio, the lack of ability to write down notes for the student. So, writing down notes for the student. Let's see. And then from Jeremiah, it's a whole lot more convenient for both tutors and students. It is a lot more accessible. So he's more positive things with online. It feels it's a lot more accessible. Right. Sometimes it's easier to make a better connection in person rather than online. Things are a lot less personal when you're online. It's just not the same type of connections for them. Okay. And then let's see, from Albert, I would say it feels about the same except for the way how to contact them. So it can be a little difficult to contact them, and you have like so many different ways when you're doing it online. As in person, you're just right there in front of them, right? Okay. And then Felix already mentioned his like he has trouble being able to write things down because it's harder to do that online. All right. So Debbie, let's go to the next slide.
Okay.
All right. So I have another question for you now. So you all have been doing online, and I know some of you said, "Well, no, I only tutor in person." But over the last 2 years, you have in some way received instruction or additional help or supplemental instruction in some way from school. Period. So you've experienced this as being a tutee, or you've experienced yourself as tutoring, or just communicating with others online. So um, my question to you is, what are you currently doing in group settings? We want to focus mainly on tutoring, but just kind of think outside the box there. What are you doing currently in your group settings? How do you tutor groups of people online? So same format. I'll give you about 30 seconds for those of you that want to be able to type things in the chat, and then after that, we'll ask people to speak up if they feel comfortable. Twenty more seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Oh, you guys got a lot of good things in here, actually. All right. So one thing, Antonio, I don't know if you feel comfortable talking about this, but I want to hear more about this voice chat. Would you mind talking about voice chat?
Yeah, sure. And I'll even use voice chat. If you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. And if anyone else is not actually talking at the moment, if you could mute yourselves, it would help with the feedback.
But yeah, so the thing about tutoring online, if you have multiple people, you can't really type anymore because in order to keep up the whole conversation, you need to type to at least two or more recipients. So at that point, it's just better to verbally communicate your sort of lesson or your feedback to everyone. So in that sense, it's just better for everyone to just start talking with their voices so that people don't have to play catch up with what they're trying to say just by typing.
All right, cool. So instead of like typing things in the chat to talk, he's encouraging people to speak up more. All right, cool. So does anyone else have some things they want to speak out loud about?
Is this in reference to it being in person or just online?
Online.
Okay, whenever it's been online, like I said there, I kind of spelled some stuff wrong, but anyways, online, I usually try and make sure if I'm in a group that they're all have the same questions. I've had people that were all wondering about the same lab and stuff, and I'm like, hey, let's get this together so that we can answer the same questions at once. If it's not the same stuff, then I said on there, I'll have multiple rooms open and I'll just jump from one chat room to another.
All right, that's excellent, Selena. Also, pleasure to meet you, Selena. I know it's probably been a while. I don't know if you remember me, but tell Brian I said hi.
All right, I will. I do remember you.
All right. Anyone else want to speak up? Okay. So Jeremiah said that he's only encountered this online, where he's had a student that he worked with classmates to get help and would work on their materials together in a Google Meet call. So similar to some things that Selena just mentioned, when they had similar questions or things that they were like-minded about, like-minded problems, they were able to get together and work together. And then Chloe says, I don't have experience with groups online, but using interactive features would be helpful, like the Jamboard. So Google's Jamboard is an interactive feature where you can put like little post-it notes or virtual post-it notes, and you can draw on, and everyone can get on there at the same time. Albert has a great suggestion here: work with one person at a time in a group setting, which also kind of goes back to something that Selena said. When they weren't similar questions, she split them up into pretty much different groups and was able to work with that. Jeremiah says he loves Jamboard. All right, awesome. Well, Deborah, if you can go to the next slide for me. So let's talk about some. We're going to talk about some things of when it's a good idea and when it maybe just more difficult to do. And these are things that you all already realize. Like, I'm not coming to you as some super expert in group tutoring. I've experienced it in the past virtually, and more so though virtually in the last 2 years for obvious reasons. But I do want you to realize that you already have these ideas because you've been either on the other side of it or you have encountered this in one way or another. Something that I love that Albert said when we were talking about the differences in online and in person, it's really not that much different. It's the same thing. You're still tutoring people. You're still providing a service to someone. But we get this feeling that now there's this extra barrier. And usually that's more so because maybe we're not experienced or in that like the use of like the webcams or using these like WebEx, Zoom, Google Meet, and then everything is kind of changing. We feel like kind of rushed with it, but you have experience tutoring, and then once you have this available to you, like right now, you all are talking to me via chat. Some of you were comfortable speaking up, and you're gonna have that same thing with students. Some people just won't. I love that Antonio said though he's encouraging them to and telling them why. Like it's gonna be better if you speak up because it's a lot easier for us to keep the flow going. I can see what your questions are in a timely manner as opposed to you having to type it up in the chat. And something else that I think it was Islan said that time is just really short. When you're working online, because sometimes people have this feeling I gotta get my answer now. I can't wait for you to talk to other people. But that's not true. I mean, even in a non-virtual environment, we're in person. People still have that same mentality. I mean, I remember when I was tutor, we have people that would complain about things taking too long, or I have to go. I need you to talk to me right now. But we had training and we had ways to work around that and to ease that so that they didn't feel so rushed and they didn't try to rush us. Things aren't that different. The things that we think are different, there are a lot of things online to help us smooth that over. So, but when is it a good idea? So when there are similar questions. Well, what if they have different questions, but they're talking about the same subject? So if you have two people in college algebra, but one person's looking at lesson 1, the other person's looking at lesson 2, can you still have a group activity with them? You can, because the person in lesson 2 can probably give different viewpoints of like, oh yeah, I remember when I did that. This is what I did, and now you've developed a connection between the two of them that they may be able to work together in class as opposed to them just continuing to come to you for tutoring. Or they may have a friendship that lasts for a long time. I know some of you had that. Actually, I remember there was 2 tutors that were in the same class together that sat like opposite sides of the room pretty much, and then another tutor like picked one of them up. It's like, no, you're gonna go over here, sit down with them. You guys are gonna work together. You can build that connection for people in your class they're in the same subject as well, especially if they're in the same subject with the same instructor, right? Or they're in the same course section. It is very important for us to do what we can when things are very similar, and you just have to judge that. But how can you judge that if you don't ask them? So one of the things that Debbie mentioned earlier with the like with time management and reaching out to students when they're in the queue is getting that short assessment of like, what are you here for? Oh, I'm here for math 121. That tells me nothing. And a lot of times students will tell you that. Sometimes I remember I would think, okay, that's okay. I'll just ask them later on, like, or I'll see the work. Or they'll be like, hey, I'm here for question 87 on test 2 from math 21 with this instructor. It's like, that doesn't tell me anything. Get more specific with them. And you just got to ask them questions so that you can know that, so that you can have that short assessment of, okay, these people can work together. But what if they're on different levels? It doesn't matter. You still can work with them in that group setting. And if they're on different levels, that person that's on a higher level again may be able to bring more suggestions or a different viewpoint that is also helpful to the other student. But sometimes that just doesn't work. The person that's maybe at a lower level or higher level gets frustrated and they don't feel comfortable. You can set the rules at the beginning of your group session so that if someone does feel uncomfortable, they can chat you privately, and you may send a message to the desk staff or another tutor that you see may be available and say, hey, I'm about to send a student over to you. I just want to let you know. And then there you go. You can continue moving forward. Speaking of moving forward, Debbie, can you give me the next slide? All right.
Wait, are we on the same one?
Next slide.
Okay.
All right. So when is it more difficult to do this? Well, sometimes students flat out refuse to be in a group environment. Well, that's okay. When that happens, you send that private message, and even if there's not another tutor available, like Tina mentioned earlier, you can always always refer them back to the list of when tutors are available. I know that Matt, you have appointments at Guadalupe. Is it available for South Mountain main campus students to make appointments with you?
Yeah, and that's more for like it was a way to manage like virtual stuff because I'm the only tutor there. So I can't get kind of like I can't like say like someone can be with you shortly. Like I have to manage my time a little differently. But I do a mix. It's like walk in, like even virtual walk in. If I get an email, right, I treat that as like someone just trying to walk in and get some help. So and, tutoring, those kinds of conversations can last like 2 minutes or closer to an hour if they have to.
So Matt, maybe you could send them Matt's way to maybe set an appointment. You can't set appointments at main campus. That's not available. But you still can kind of think about, time wise, like, oh, I know I'm currently with the student and this other person's refusing to come in with the group. I can estimate that I'm probably going to be with this other student maybe 30 more minutes. And then I can let them know that in 30 minutes, I will have more time to be with you one-on-one. As I mentioned earlier about the students being on different levels and you notice that they may need further support or more one-on-one. If students are in different courses, but it's the same subject, sometimes things can, like if it's math still, but someone's in calculus and someone's in college algebra, there are times where you can totally do those in group settings. But that's based off the assessment. I know I've had times where I was working with someone that's in calculus, and the actual issue is once I integrated, I'm trying to find the C, and I don't know how to find an unknown. And someone's doing algebra, they're solving for an unknown. Both parties are solving for an unknown. There's no difference in what I'm teaching them, no difference in the skill that I'm teaching them or working with them or working on with them. So I can bring those two pieces together. But sometimes you just can't do that. If you're teaching someone how to integrate, you can't be working with someone in college algebra on that as well. Or if they're just in completely different subjects, because some of you work in or tutor in multiple subjects at the same time, it becomes a lot more difficult. So in that case, what do you do? So let's go to the next slide here, Debbie.
Well, I wanted to add a little something. I was going to say how interacting with any of the teachers that you do have subjects for was helpful for me because I told them in the email that I sent out at the beginning of the semester that they're welcome to email me if they want to do a group thing. And that way they can, in the class, get a group together and then say, hey, we want this group together. What's a good time? And if they have your email because of the instructor and your interactions with the instructor, you can put that out as an option, even with our setup.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I didn't know that you all were allowed to do that. That is actually awesome, and something that everyone probably should. Honestly, Debbie, that might be something that you could do on your end. Just send out a flat email saying these are the twos we have available for these subjects, and then let us know if you want to have group sessions or something. Yeah, that's great.
Thank you for that great idea. I'll get that in a couple of sentences and then see if we can write up an email to send to faculty when try to create a group environment.
All right.
The benefit I've noticed is just like Christopher was saying with group environments is they start to play off of each other. They start to say, oh, this is how I understood it this way. Or do you remember when he said this in class? Like they really start to teach each other. And then they create those groups that keep communicating through text because they give each other their phone numbers. It's oftentimes what happens. And sometimes what they'll end up doing is they'll come in, one person will come and do, I mean, that's nice when the class comes from, so like happen and have them join. So.
Yeah. All right, Debbie, if you could go to the next slide. All right. And so we're going to talk about some strategies for handling multiple online clients. And these are a lot of things you've already mentioned. So notice how I have two main strategies. So like breakout rooms or multiple sessions at the same time. I know someone mentioned having multiple Google Chats. I think it may have been Selena. It was. I'm lagging.
Oh, no. Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
All
No, that was sorry.
No, you're good. But yeah, so having multiple sessions or having one room or one online room and managing the flow. So I have handled multiple students in one room together. I did this honestly last week in my classroom just to see how it would work out before I talk to you all about it. But in both of these, notice how I have the exact same strategies here. Make sure you acknowledge the students. No matter what, that was one of the things that Debbie talked about too earlier. You need to acknowledge the people there. I mean, if you don't, I don't know if any of you have ever experienced this where you're at a restaurant or Starbucks or you're on some online platform trying to get help for some technology support or something. You hate not being acknowledged, right? If you sit there for 2 minutes, sometimes people get angry. 5 minutes, 30, an hour. The longer it goes, if you haven't even been acknowledged, the worse you feel. I've been at places where someone has acknowledged me immediately and I had to wait 10 to 15 minutes. I didn't even think about it. I didn't realize it was 10 to 15 minutes because I was already acknowledged. In my mind, I know that they know I'm here and they're going to take care of me. So in both areas, make sure you acknowledge them. Now, sometimes that may feel kind of weird for you as a person doing it. For instance, if you have multiple sessions or break rooms open and you're going to each one like, hold on a second, I have to go acknowledge these other people real quick. Hold on a second, I have to go acknowledge these other people real quick. And you keep doing that. That may feel weird. So, do a true acknowledgement. Give some time in between. People may be okay waiting for 2 minutes in the next room. Acknowledge the person that you're there with. And honestly, you probably shouldn't open up multiple sessions at the beginning, like one time anyway. You should do that staggered out. But if you are doing it in a one room flow, you have a student that's in, you're talking with them about something, someone else comes in, you continue and finish your sentence and say, hold on a second, it looks like someone else has joined us. Hey, how are you doing today? Right now we're talking about this subject. Do your little quick assessment with them. What are you studying? Da, da, da. And it may be a connection or it may not be a connection, maybe a completely different subject. And then that's when you get to make changes of move them to another room or have them go to another session or whatever you need to do based off that assessment. But that quick assessment is essential in both of these cases. And make sure you set rules beforehand. That's another big thing. So like if you're doing a one room flow and you kind of have people in there at one time, when I had to tutor C2 education, you always had 3 students, always. And you would get them staggered out 10 to 20 minutes a piece when they arrive. And so you would start with the first one, you would get them started on some things, and then once you came to a stop point, the next one may have been there for a couple of minutes, or they may get there right at that moment. Either way, now you're starting anew with them, but they realize that someone else is there because you told them that. And then you do the same thing with them, and then you move on, and then you keep going back. So you're able to kind of get a cycle rolling through. And when I worked at Mathnasium, we actually had to move our chairs physically from table to table when we were working with students. But we always had these rules set that everyone knew. And they got used to that as they came to our sessions multiple times. So whatever rules that you want to have, like for instance, Antonio said they have to use voice. They cannot type in the chat. That is a rule he sets forth at the beginning. So letting them know and saying that rule beforehand, and then just let them know the flow of how things are going to go. If you do that, they'll be a lot more comfortable. I mean, think about your classes that you've taken. Have you ever been in a class where there's no syllabus or anything and instructors never gave you any set of rules or told you what's going to happen? You feel like confused. You feel kind of crazy, like you don't know what to do at all. You don't even feel cared for, honestly, because no one set any boundaries for you or told you how things are going to go. It's the same thing in these environments. So, okay. Any questions there? Oh, how do you set rules? Can I give an example? Yeah, one example. So like last week when I was attempting to do the one room flow kind of thing, I told them that I'm going to begin talking with you. I will be talking to you, all you students. We were doing programming, so I was like, I'm going to look at everyone's programming, talk to you all one-on-one on. We were doing binary to hex and to decimal, so we were converting. So I gave them an example of something they should try doing, 3 of them, and then I said, all right, I'll be going to this person first, then this person, then this person, then this person, then this person. And if you have an immediate question, you can chat to me privately. Make sure it's private, and then that way I'll know. But I will be following this order. And so by doing so, they knew when their turn was coming up, and they knew how long I was going to be with each person too. So I set that rule beforehand, and when things looked like they were going a little longer, for instance, I said I'm going to spend 5 minutes with each student. When they got to 6 minutes, the other student one would either let me know there, or the student I was talking to sometimes would say, I know my time's almost such, but I have one more thing real quick. Or they'll say, I'll just put it in the chat for next time. That way I can rotate around easily. And so they would keep me accountable as well because you've set the rules beforehand. All right. Any other questions? All right, cool. Let's go to the next slide, Debbie. All right, so some things to remember. You are in charge of this room. You're in charge of the session. You are the tutor there. Don't let someone else run things. So for instance, if you are working with a student, another student comes in and they decide they don't want to, you set your flow, you set your rules beforehand, and they decide they don't want to do that. I need help right now though. No, I need you to talk to me. You're not talking to me. You are in charge of that room. You can ask them to leave. You can put them back in a weight room if you have that set up as well. Or as we talked about earlier, with difficult situations, maybe chat out to a desk staff or the Debbie, and then you could have that student go there. Establish that flow and stick to it. Don't start changing things midway, because then that makes it look like you don't hold yourself accountable, or you don't hold yourself accountable to your own rules. Keep track of what you're doing. Watch your time. I mean, that's what I'm doing now. We've been given a set time for these, what we're gonna be doing with our presentations. I have my little phone. Yes, I still have the same type of phone for those of you back then. Remember, got my flip phone. Yeah, I know a lot of you still.
Okay, we have to talk about that. Sorry, we have to talk about the flip phone, my guy.
We can talk about that later. But yeah, no. So yeah, I have my timer here. I can see quickly, so I can keep time on that, and then keep the environment safe. Now, what I mean by that is just using good manners, keeping things respectful for everyone involved, and making sure that you're including everyone, and that everyone's comfortable, including yourself. If you don't feel comfortable in a setting like, say, like, we talked about, oh, you could do, one room flow kind of thing, and you try and you don't feel comfortable, then stop it. You have to be comfortable with what you're doing. It is 2021, Felix. I know that. I can see that on my phone. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, so next slide, platforms. So you all have been using, I've been told, and I've seen some of you, various platforms. You have Zoom, you have WebEx, you have Google Meet. Some of you are just sharing your screen while you're in there. You're using the video from one of these others. So honestly, I personally don't like that everyone has their own flow, but I do like the flexibility that you all have been given. But let's talk about some things that you can do in these. Zoom has a whiteboard. Zoom has breakout rooms if you have full access, which I hear everyone at ASU, all ASU students have that for free. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that, Antonio. But if not, you have a time limit for free service, about 40 minutes, if you have more than one other person in the room with you. Yep, that's correct. So if you're an ASU student, you get to use Zoom for free. Cameron's in. What's up, Cameron? And that's why he uses Zoom, because it's free. He can set up his own sessions. That's great. But the whiteboard on Zoom is awesome. I use that too. And if you have a iPhone or like an iPad or something, or a tablet of any kind that you connect and you get on Zoom, you can do add yourself in through that way, and also on the computer if you want to, or just through the tablet. The great part about the whiteboard is that you can just be writing with your stylus, and it's a lot easier to write. I've never had a lag with Zoom in terms of the whiteboard. WebEx, it's free for all of you. You all have your own WebEx account. We're in Debbie created one, and you don't have to create meetings either. You can have one link that you have all the time, your personal meeting room for people to come in. And that's what I use. I try my best to only use that. Why? So my students can just click that one thing. They don't ever have to like, oh, wait, where's our new meeting? Oh, where's the one for this one? They just have one link to click. I do the same thing for when I tutor privately and when I homeschool. If I have to homeschool virtually, I do the same thing. I have that one link. They click. There's no confusion of like, oh, what am I supposed to use this time? Or you don't have confusion of, I need to set up a meeting real quick. One link, it's already done. And every last one of you has a WebEx account. If you go to maricopa.webex.com, sign in with your MEID at maricopa.edu. There it is. You can start your meetings. And the whiteboard on that, though, it lags. I'm just going to say that. It lags. It kind of sucks. So when I'm using WebEx, guess what I do? I pull out a sheet of paper. I write on it. They can see there. Or I have a whiteboard. I have a whiteboard in my guest bedroom. I have a whiteboard in my bedroom. I have a whiteboard in my office as well, and I have whiteboards in the classroom. So I have a lot of whiteboards, and I have little ones too if I need to. So I can write on that so people can see. I used to have a chalkboard because I'm old school, just phone. But I used to have a chalkboard too. But I think you all have access to a lot of those things. Do I have to write backwards? No, you don't have to write backwards. And then you have option to flip your screen to a mirror on WebEx. It automatically should be mirroring, but sometimes people have to do that so they can see for themselves that it looks the way it looks online, because it will look to you as a viewer that it's flipped, but everyone else can see it correctly. But no, I do not have to write backwards. I have that skill if I ever need to use it, though. All right, and Google Meet has a whiteboard, it says, but that's a lie. It's not a whiteboard. It's just Jamboard. Anyone that has access to that can be writing on that at the same time. So just be careful with that. And I think so. You all do have the small whiteboards. I thought I remember seeing people have that.
Yeah.
So you all do have the small whiteboard.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah. You keep it moving, but we gave them all that one when they went online, so that they had one, but they might have lost it by then.
All right. Yeah. I'm sure you guys can get some other ones. I mean, yeah, they got others. So if you need one, you can come get one at school. It can get mailed to you if you're one of those people that's stuck at home. Dollar Tree has them for $1. Yeah. So I mentioned also I mentioned others, and I mentioned others because there's things like Bramble. Some of you have access to Classroom, so you have a big blue button, which actually works a lot better and it's a lot more sequence. You can record the sessions in case the student wanted to have that for later. But there are a lot of things out there, and more people are coming up with different things to use. But find something that you're comfortable with and stick to it. It would be nice if things were more uniform. So I would say stick to just one platform. Don't use multiple. Like, Mondays I like to use WebEx, Tuesdays I like to use Zoom. Don't do that because it can get confusing, especially if a student comes on multiple days to you. All right. So that's all I have for group tutoring, and I hope this was helpful to you all. Does anyone have any other questions or comments, concerns, death threats?
Thank you. It was great.
Thank you. You're great. You're all great. That's why I wanted to do this.
Good information.
I like the fact that when Jeremiah is tutoring, he's using that Jamboard and he has like 10 pages going, and he keeps opening up another page, and it's really, and then he showed me you can share that PDF with the student after it was done. So I felt that was a helpful tool.
Yeah, no. So the great thing about Jamboard is you can literally, when we open up each page, you can, if just saying that rule beforehand, tell each student what page they're gonna have, and they can go just to that page, and you can just be scrolling through as you make changes. I've used that a lot in the classroom. Yeah, it's very, very helpful if you use it appropriately. I don't use it as a whiteboard though.
Now, Christopher, let's say you had like 3 students in there. Could you have 3 different Jamboards, and could they go to that rate separately and then come back to that to their board when you're back with them again?
Yeah, you can create a separate Jamboard, or you can have one Jamboard with different pages and give students the access to a separate page on it, or just tell the students like you have page 1 and another student you have page 2 on this Jamboard, and so on. That way you can keep having it, and then you'll have them saved too. You can even put their names at the top so they'll feel even more welcome. Like, oh, I know this is my Jamboard. I get to put things on here. So yeah, you can totally do that. Cameron said he has some general questions about situations he's experienced recently. It's more personalized. Do you feel comfortable talking aloud, Cameron? Because it'd be great to hear your voice too. Might be a little easier, but if you want to put it in the chat, you can as well.
Don't mind talking about it. I've just had a few experiences recently with some students where it feels, in person, if I don't know how online to get them to, I don't know. I feel like I'm almost borderline doing the homework for them. Obviously not giving that, like just doing it, but with some students, I feel myself struggling to actually get them to, I don't know. In person, I would just say, okay, I've shown you how to do an example, do it, and then walk away for a while. And online, I tell them, okay, now go ahead and do it. And then I leave them and I come back and I'm like, so how far did you get? And they're like, well, I didn't do it. Or I got the first part wrong. Or they spent 20 minutes doing almost nothing. So I only have it with certain students, and I'm not sure how to go about that. Because what I've been doing recently, I don't think is the best way to go about it, which is just continually walking through like every single problem.
At some point, you do have to say no, but I would try. You can try some more scaffolding with that too. Like, so if it's a problem that has multiple parts, on the first you did an example with them, right? Maybe you did a couple examples, and then you start taking away at when you you won't continue to help them through. Like if it's a 6-step process, you start beginning only going through the 5 steps after you've done a couple examples. Now 4, 3, 2, 1. Now they're actually, you're walking them through getting to do it all on their own. So that's one thing you can do. But if they are flat out just like, because some people will try that. They've always have, right? They'll come in for tutoring and then they'll like, oh, this isn't a quiz, or oh, this isn't a homework question, it's something similar. And sometimes you'll make up your own that looks looks the same but similar, so for certain it's similar, but they'll keep trying at it because they want you just to do the work for them, or they want you to walk them through it and like, oh, I'm getting it, but really they're just trying to egg you on so you give them everything so they don't have to do anything. But you just have to kind of catch that. And if that happens, then you just like, okay, you know what? I think that you might need some extra attention, or you don't say that to them, but maybe you just like put them on to their instructor and say, hey, this is what I see going on. Oh, that actually is something very important that I was told by my division to make sure I tell the tutors since I got this opportunity. Please use those surveys that you guys have for where you like put the 1 for this person needs your help instructor, the 2s and all that. Please use that. One of our faculty members got one for the first time in 7 years. She was like, what is this? What do I do with this? What's this 1 mean? But after we explained it to them, they're like, I know I have students that go to tutoring all the time. I can pull the report and see that. Why don't I see this about anyone else? I'm just expecting everyone's all good once they leave. Use those so that we know.
Would you, in case they can't remember, would you remind them that what the numbers mean, or I can let them know. They can read it on when you're closing out your session.
Yeah, when you close out your session, the 1 is pretty much the student is not getting anything, or they need more attention from the instructor. And then 2, students getting better, but they still might need some attention. And then 3, like everything's like going well. And I don't remember if there was any others after that.
Yeah, there's a 4 or 5. No extra help needed, and I can't remember what the 5th one was.
Yeah. But please
guys think? Oh, what do you guys think about saying things too, like, I need to see that you understand this, so this next one, I'm not going to do anything with you. Because that's an okay thing to present to the student. And after you've walked through it at least once, be like, on this next one, I'm not going to say anything. I need to see what your understanding is. And then it puts them on the spot. Maybe that would help too.
It can. I've been doing some diversity training recently, and that was one of the things they talked about being careful doing, of just immediately jumping to that. Like be careful with the scaffolding, but you judge that with the student because everyone's different. Because sometimes when that happens, people feel abandoned. Like oh, you helped me like this one time, now you just let me go. Like a baby just like got born out the egg, chicken. You're like, okay, go fly. Like that's how some people feel with that, and they just immediately shut down. So you just want to be mindful of that, of how you scaffold. But it is just scaffolding. That's just another example. That one's a little quicker. But like the way that Selena just said it is probably is a lot more smooth, honestly. Of hey, I want to see what you understood from the last time. So let's see how far you get with this one. Or let's see how you do with this one. Instead of saying I want you to do it on your own now, you're saying I want to see how you have improved from what we just went over. So I love how Selena put that. So it could also be how you're saying it, Cameron.
And I like both of those ideas. Would that be similar to, you're acknowledging them and you're trying to do assessment? Is that part of setting the boundaries and setting the rules that you mentioned earlier, Christopher?
Yeah, it is.
And if we, because we want to let them know at the front end that we have 30 minutes. And Dan was said to try to keep it at 30 minutes, but if you need less, definitely you can use less. If you need more, go ahead, but make sure they know that there's other students that you're going to be assisting, because that's important, because you're communicating to them. They don't have this expectation they're going to sit there for like more than 30 minutes. You'll still help them, but you're rotating around and helping people.
Now I want to be respectful of time, and I know Matt has some things that he's about to talk about next in regards to. Oh, okay. He told me. But I was gonna say, if you all have other questions, you can put them in the chat, and I can respond to you later, like as a general email, maybe to Deborah that she can then send out. Or you can email me to Christopher.Stevens@southmountaincc.edu, or text me, because I think like probably everyone but 2 people here have my number. So, but
if we could at the end, help me to save the chats for part of the recording so that, we can share that later. All right, we're ready for our very next part. So Matt's going to help us with our next part. Oh, so take a minute to breathe.
Maybe let's take a minute. Anyone need to like
Take a minute to
stand
breathe.
up, stretch around? I might go use the restroom real quick, and we can just take a minute, come back, and absorb some of that information that Christopher gave us.
Or, oh, I couldn't hear you. Couldn't hear you, Matt.
Oh, can you? No one can hear me?
Okay, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. It's just really soft.
Really soft. Okay. Maybe I had to like take out my headphones. Bluetooth headphones died, so maybe I need to like be closer to my computer, which is weird, but okay. All right. Volume low. Okay, maybe that's enough of a break for everyone. You can just listen to my very quiet voice. So yeah, for this part, we just wanted to think a little bit about and get some feedback on how we might bring study groups into tutoring or think about encouraging students to form study groups as a way to kind of extend and elaborate on the peer tutoring experience. So to get us started, I just kind of wanted to take a second and ask, how many of you have been in like a voluntarily organized study group before for like a class or not even a class, but for anything? Christopher has. I don't know if I can see everyone. Yes.
I've worked
Chloe.
with study groups that students put together themselves because in the midst of their study group, they were like, hey, let's have the tutor kind of, but I don't think I ever put together one except for like just me and one other person. So it wasn't really a group.
Selena, was that you?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. And so do you think that in that experience it was because you didn't have like tutoring available or like there was just something you were getting from the study group experience that you weren't getting elsewhere?
I didn't have tutoring available. They had no bio tutor at the time. And so I just tried to bounce thoughts off of this other student that we both were like really wanting to do well in the class. So
Right.
we would meet at Starbucks.
Yeah. And I've had classes, and this is from my experience more in like social sciences and humanities, but like I've had classes and I wonder if some people in like hard sciences have had this too, where you're kind of encouraged to like form study groups and collaborate. And when things like Google Docs became really big, it actually became really easy to have a study group where everyone could work on, kind of the same document pretty much at the same time. There might be like a little bit of lag because of bandwidth issues, and like processing speeds for the servers. But we could do like large bibliographies. We could take notes on a class that was kind of happening in real time if we wanted to, and like point out where someone had a question that maybe someone else could answer or like flag something to ask the professor later. So having a study group, I think, is a way to extend the class time, but also it kind of like extend the learning relationship like more horizontally. And I think that there might be a way that we can all think together now about how to bring together tutoring and study groups. So can we go to the next slide? So I wanted to, like drawing on some of the material that Deborah was sending me about study groups, I wanted to think about what are some of the benefits of having a regular study group, and like, aside from just like a one-off, like you get together with a couple people to study for an exam. Like I remember like my first quarter of college, because I was on the quarter system, which is like also, I don't know if anyone has experienced the quarter system before, but it's bonkers because your classes are 10 weeks and you have like your classes are 10 weeks, but you would still have like 2 midterms and a final. It's just like, it's chaos. But it was like this political theory class. And I remember there were like a bunch of people who
were like sending emails. The class was huge. It was like 200 people. And they were like sending emails like, hey, does anyone want to have like an exam study group for the final exam? Or like a midterm or something like that. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like man, I feel like so lost. I like don't know what's going on. And I showed up and everyone was surprised because they were like, wait, but you have like, you're like one of the best students in the class. Why are you here? And like, they spent like the whole time just like asking me the answers to everything. And that was like, it was like fun and it was good to like study with other people, but it was a one-off thing, right? And it happened at the very end of the semester or the very end of the quarter. And so it didn't serve me as well as it would have if I had had a consistent group the entire time. And I think that's one of the biggest benefits of having a regular study group. So you establish these long-term educational relationships that aren't with your professor, who you might like be intimidated by. They would obviously have like time constraints on like how much time they can spend with you. There's like professional boundaries and stuff like that. You can learn from other people's perspectives, like especially for me, you know, learning about like the way you might approach a problem from different people with different backgrounds is really really important. And strong social relations that can help you with course completion. So I know that at South and in Guadalupe, um, you know, something we think a lot about is course completion, just making sure that students can finish courses and don't drop out. And I think a lot of times students feel really alienated in classrooms where they, you know, they're learning the course content at the same time they're learning the kind of like social and professional norms of being in college, either for the first time or as a returning student at an age where, you know, they feel like they're not the typical college student, even though there's no such thing as a typical college student, right? So I think all of these are really good reasons why we would think about or why we would want to have like regular study groups. All right, can we go to the next slide? So this was from material that Deborah sent me on how to set up a study group, but I want us to think about and just reflect as I'm talking about how we might do this kind of at the beginning of a semester. And I was thinking about this also from the perspective of like, say you have multiple people in the same class or a similar class coming to tutoring, but like having to wait. Maybe we could solve some of that by having regular or semi-regular or open group tutoring where, you know, if you know, people can't make every meeting, they can at least make a few of them and they can feel free to move in and out. But anyway, this is material from Ball State University in Indiana and Cornell University Learning Strategies Center. So one of the first things that you'll want to do when you just get a sense of like who all is interested is setting up expectations, right? And that expectation might be, you know, anything from like you make every meeting to you make at least one meeting a month to, you know, you do an outline or you help, you know, you take the lead on solving this problem or you know, do this task before the next meeting. So expect expectations like that, just so that no one feels like they have to do all the work and no one feels like they're also, you know, maybe being excluded from anything or that they're not getting what they need out of the study group. Obviously, setting up just like the basic logistical stuff of like meeting times and locations, whether you're on or off campus, making sure that it's in a safe and inclusive place, also really important. And we can talk a bit more about what that means. Setting up kind of like expectations for participation, right? Again, like how much you're coming, how much you are saying or doing in these meetings, and communication. And I think most importantly, for what I also want to think about is technology use, right? How do we set up group study or like study groups that can operate virtually or with these platforms that Christopher talked to us about? So then before a meeting, just like a few basic things like setting up the focus, like what are we focusing on during this meeting? Because you can obviously get really derailed if someone shows up to talk about like a different chapter or like they have a completely different set of problems that they're working on, right? So setting up the focus of the meeting is important. And then during the meeting, thinking about things like focusing, collaboration, turn taking, note taking, sharing, and follow-up questions. And I want to say that like honestly, during these kinds of study group meetings, note taking is probably the most important thing to be doing. Having a record, because like people are going to be, I mean, they'll be taking turns hopefully, but when you're in that kind of horizontal group, the flow of the conversation is going to be more free association than it is going to be like logical progression, right? People are going to be bouncing ideas back and forth between each other, and it's not necessarily going to be like following a lecture. So having a good note taker, and then also like maybe rotating the note taking role so that different people get a chance to develop that skill is really important. And then of course, like afterwards, you want to share those things and you want to invite follow-up questions. And so when I imagine like having a tutoring study group, I'm thinking about maybe the tutor taking on some of the responsibilities to like to help set expectations, maybe facilitate meetings. But in facilitating the meetings, they're not necessarily like being the teacher. They are providing like additional expertise and outside guidance while the group is having this kind of more dynamic conversation. Yeah. So yeah, Jeremiah, talking about how it's fairly simple since both students were taking the same class and working on the same homework. Jeremiah, do you want to say something about that experience?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it was a like a circuits class that they were working on, and they were working on trying to find like certain things within this given circuit, and they were both having trouble with the problem. And the student, one of them had like previously worked with me, and like had been coming in like a couple times already, so we were kind of familiar. And I guess he had worked with like another one of his classmates from time to time, and suggested that they both come in to get tutored together. And so they both joined the call, and we just went over the week together and tried to help them out with that. And it was really easy, I guess, since it was the exact same material. I didn't have to like reiterate anything, I guess, or do separate problems or anything like that. It was just the same homework for the same, like they were the same level of understanding, I guess. Pretty easy.
Great. Thank you for sharing that.
All right, no problem.
And then after the meeting, remembering to carry forward like questions or topics that need more clarification, and then setting up the next meeting time. And I really want to emphasize that like one of the benefits of forming study groups isn't just that one class, but learning these skills, which is like kind of the foundation for like all sorts of different kinds of work you might be taking on in the future. Like the study group is very similar to like the pitch meeting or like a project meeting, right? Or like any situation in which you need to collaborate with other people to think about a problem and solve it. You are basically in a study group, right? So learning the habits of kind of like these horizontal conversations with minimal outside guidance is also a work skill, is also a kind of expectation we have for people entering the workforce. And the more that we like adjust students to it and like kind of like engage in that practice ourselves, I think the more we'll benefit the broader community. Okay, next slide. So let's think about how we can apply some of the principles of study groups that like might be in person to virtual settings through like parallels. I was like really trying to think of like, okay, so like, you know, when Deborah and Christopher and I were having these like meetings to talk about this training, we were like, okay, so like, what is waiting online similar to in person, right? What's its parallel? And its parallel is like if you're waiting in the lobby or around the computer desks, like at the front desk, and no one's talking to you, right? It would feel weird if you were in the tutoring center and like no one talked to a student who is in there, right? And that's similar to like how they're in line or like they're in the queue online and like no one's getting to them, right? They're just like sitting there. So let's think about some more parallels. So I was thinking about just like kind of three main principles that I really wanted to emphasize in group tutoring or group study groups. Let me see. I need to my notes on this. So inclusiveness. So this I think like doesn't just mean so I want it to resonate in two ways. First, inclusiveness has to mean accessibility, right? Technologically, we have to make sure or we have to kind of confirm and work towards students having internet, a strong connection, a quiet place to work during study group time, the same as we would do for online tutoring, right? Just making sure that students are in a place where they can focus and they have the infrastructural support to be there. But we also want to be inclusive in the sense of like people with diverse backgrounds, people with disabilities, and I think we'll do a future tutoring on like diversity in student populations, but making sure that we aren't setting up things at like odd times that might say exclude, you know, people who have parents who work, making people be in situations in which they're not comfortable, stuff like that. And we'll talk about inclusiveness, I think, in another training in that sense. And for a tutor who's facilitating this kind of work, this might include making sure to set up a stable web link. Like we have probably more experience with setting up like the right kind of environment than students would. So, you know, like when you're getting ready to like do an in-person math tutoring session, you kind of want to make sure you're somewhere that like has the right, you know, gear for you. If you want a whiteboard, if you want to work on a computer, you need to like put yourself there and make sure you have that stuff available to you. You don't just like sit down at a random desk and then be like, oh wait, I have to like set all this stuff up, right? So making sure you have like a stable web link, or you are like thinking about what kinds of online resources you're going to be using. Try to pick the right platform and the right tools for that. I was thinking also about how like open seating is like something I've often heard or like talked about in terms of like making a good study group. And so what is meant by open seating is like that everyone has enough space, everyone is comfortable, but also not placed in like a kind of typical classroom setup where like one person is at the front and everyone else is like facing them at, like a typical school or like a typical classroom. So when we think of like open seating in virtual study groups, like or like open seating in like person is like circular, right? It's circular and it's a little bit spread out, but like we're making sure that everyone can still like hear and stuff like that. And I think with virtual study groups, like one way to do this is to make sure that you're giving people enough space to like introduce themselves and kind of like make themselves comfortable in the virtual setup, like whether that's with icebreakers, especially like the first time you're meeting with a study group, that would be really important. Small activities for people to get to know each other, constant or like regular breaks so that people don't get burned out, or they can, you know, like just like refresh their minds a little bit, I think are really important.
When I think of your open seating concept, I think of fluid, being fluid, and but yet still focusing, but fluid enough to kind of like work in the room.
Yeah.
But you're doing it online.
Yeah, totally. And then clear lines of sight, I think like I don't want this to like sound confusing, but like when you're in this like open tutoring or like study group environment, like you want to make sure everyone can see what you're working on, right? Like whether it's their own notes or whether it's their whether it's a whiteboard or a calculator or whatever. And so when we think about clear lines of sight in virtual tutoring, what I'm thinking about is like making sure that everyone can see like the Google Doc or the Jamboard or whatever material you're working on, making sure that people are literally on the same page, right? But this time it's like a web page. Sorry, that was a really bad joke. Making sure that you're doing things like, and this I think goes back to like accessibility as part of that inclusiveness, right? Is just making sure that everyone can focus on the same object, that the object is not being constantly moved around and put up and then taken back. Like imagine how like disorienting it would be if like we were constantly moving between like the PowerPoint being presented and then not, right? And then the PowerPoint's back on and then not, right? We want to make sure that when we're setting up the space, there is a constancy, that there is that there's like equality of access to it, and that people aren't being also kind of like crowded out in terms of their ability to access that thing. So making sure that like if someone's not participating or if some people are participating maybe like a lot, to like kind of like try to balance those things out a little bit. So those are the three principles I was kind of thinking about to like at least get us started, to get you guys started thinking about what might your virtual group tutoring look like, if that's something that you do. Next slide. Oh, I thought.
Did you
I'm
have
sorry.
another thing? Yeah, did I miss something? Yeah.
Oh, these are the slides from the other presentation. That
Yeah.
you, I think maybe that was the end of my slides, was it?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was.
Anything I missed? Well, we'll go ahead and this is a good point. Do you have any? Okay, we'll go ahead and yeah, that was from the other one, but yeah.
Well, I mean, we can open it up to questions and then maybe move to close out a little bit early because it's already been an hour and a half, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we only have about 15 minutes left, and I want to maybe make some space for questions or comments, feedback, hate mail for Christopher, questions about Christopher's phone. I just don't understand. I mean, as someone who was like a late adopter of a smartphone, like I didn't get one until I went to grad school, but I still got one. That was still like 2012.
This is brand new. This is, well, not brand new. This is like 2019 now. December 2019. Brand new.
What's the battery life?
The battery life?
Yeah.
Like a week.
Okay.
Well, speaking of phones, I got the original iPhone here, and that AT&T's contacting me because they're phasing out the 3G network.
My goodness.
So
Yeah.
it doesn't even do, so it's not a flip, but it's the first iPhone.
But yeah, mine's just not 3G. It's never has been. It's only 4G light and above. I have to have data in order to even text. It's so new. So new, Matt. It's so new.
Well, do we have any questions? I'm gonna say, well, I did have a page for conclusion. Do we want to do conclusion then questions, or?
If people have questions, they can throw their hands up. We'll see.
Right.
But otherwise, Deborah, why don't you go ahead and move us through the conclusion, and we can
Alrighty.
end a bit early.
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming today because it was a very good collaborative day. I feel like so today we talked a little bit about creating a welcoming environment, even if you're online, because we want the Learning Center to be known for its spirit of welcoming and helpful, and that the students want to come back and relax and chill and be with us. We want to acknowledge that people, as soon as they come into the waiting room, as soon as we can, we're going to work together as a group and communicate. We're going to just communicate to whoever signs in that what to expect and how we're going to help them today. We, Christopher, you want to cut on, summarize some of yours, or?
Yeah. So honestly, just to summarize, just make sure that you are comfortable with what you're doing. You acknowledge the students, just like David just said, and you set your rules beforehand. So set your rules for yourself and how you want the flow of things to go. And then when the students come in, make sure that it's known, and have fun too. Make sure you have fun. And also share your screen so they can see what you look like. They feel a lot more personal. So, yeah.
Yes, and Matt, would you like to, any points on the study groups?
I think just remembering that learning doesn't only take place in a classroom, that in some cases we learn a lot more from struggling together with other people than we do from just receiving it from a teacher. No, like, of course, no disrespect to the teachers among us, of which I have been one. But people learn in a variety of contexts, and like part of what makes tutoring so important is providing students space outside of a classroom, and outside some of those hierarchies.
All right. I think that's it for today. And does anybody have any further questions, or you can always send us a question. I guess that's it. Thank
No
you for coming
questions here.
today.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
So bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye,
I'll see you all. See you at the
Bye.
tutoring game night. Dance painter.
How do I turn off the recording, and how do I save the chat?
There should be a button at the bottom for where you're recording.
Oh wait, I think that's what's happening is let me stop sharing the presentation. All right. Now I can see it. When the presentation's on, the menu item's not there. Everybody have a great weekend. Thank you for coming. And
Thanks, Deborah.
we'll have a recording we'll go back to later.
Oh, hey, Deborah, before you end the meeting, I have
Yes.
a question.
Sure.
And it's me, Albert, by the way.
Hi, Albert.
It's kind of irrelevant to the tutoring things. So, I don't know if you saw my message. I sent it to you in the chats. It's about an instructor named Brittany. Oh, hold on. Brittany Johnson for Chemistry 107.
No, I did not see that. I apologize. I usually go back and catch them.
It's okay. So I can talk about it. So, yeah, I'm taking her class, and it started on the 18th, right, of October.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been working on her assignments, and suddenly, after a few days, just out of nowhere, I can't see her course anymore. So I can't even do the assignments at all. How can I fix that, or who do I talk to?
Is that in Canvas?
Yeah, it's an online class.
If you could you send it to you would talk to the CTL or Canvas administration, but that's me. So you could just send me an email.
Oh.
And then I'll probably go in as you so I could see what you're seeing, but you might be set as inactive too. But let's figure it out. But if you send me an email, then I can run the report and do that.
Yeah, and another odd thing is I sent an email to the instructor 3 days ago about an issue I was having on one of her assignments. No response. It's already been 3 days.
Yeah. I would try. Do you have a phone number or any other way to message her that she has, or have you tried? Did you message through Canvas or Gmail?
Her email. I tried messaging her through the Canvas messaging option, but it wasn't showing her option to message her.
That means it might mean you've been dropped from the course.
No way.
It's possible. That's usually what that means. But we have had some instances this semester where it looks like that, and the instructor assumes that, but that's not what's happening. So.
Oh, because I literally paid for the class with my card, so it's not from FAFSA or anything, so it should be guaranteed I have the class paid.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I would do that. The other thing you could do is to go above her to whoever's like over her, just to let them know like that you're not seeing anything on Canvas, anything like that. And you, beforehand you were trying to email her, so you're not sure if she just doesn't know that you're still in the class or something's going on with that. Yeah, keep respectful instead of like tattletelling. But yeah.
Yeah, what I can do, Albert, is I'll look through your chat and find out what day of the week was that, because I can look up the person. I'll look up the what division that's in and who can help you on that.
You want me to check for what?
No, I'll check the chat, what day of the week it was, and I'll and I can find the instructor name and see who she works with, and so that we can get a collaboration going and help solve the problem. Thank you for being patient and asking about it.
Yeah, no problem.
Bye, Antonio. Bye, everybody. Do I have to do anything to save the chat? Oh, I can't hear you now.
Oh, Christopher, you're muted.
I don't know how you have the meeting set up. So when you close out, I usually get an option to ask me to save the log for the chat. But if you don't know if you have that, then you can just copy and paste. So if you just select it all,
Mm-hmm.
you should be able to get everything.
So I can turn the recording off, then I can copy paste before I sign out.
Yeah.
All right.
What,
I know how to
so,
do that.
Christopher,
Yeah.
you want me to send you an email
Yeah. Send me an email.
about the instructor's name or?
Yeah. I need the instructor.